and we all need to be to hopefully pass one item on consent that requires all 8 votes. So I'll call this meeting of the Standing Committee on City Finance and Services to order. Madam Clerk, may we have the roll call, please?
Councillor Louis is on leave of absence for civic business. Councillor Stevenson. Here. Councillor Deal. Here. Councillor Jang. On leave of absence for civic business. Councillor Reimer. Councillor Meggs is in the chair. Here. Councillor Ball is on medical leave. Councillor Carr. Here. Councillor Affleck. Here. Councillor DeGenova. You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. As chair for the meeting, I'm suggesting that for reports that have no presentation, speakers, or consideration items, we adopt the recommendations collectively in a single motion. Where there are currently no presentations or speakers registered for items 3 and 4, does any member wish to hold this report for debate, separate vote, or any report separate vote, or because of conflict of interest? Okay, all good? None do? Item 3 requires 8 affirmative votes, so we'll go to the voting screen, I guess. I didn't get turned on there. Are we ready to go? Well, for both. It's the consent agenda. If everybody votes unanimously, then good. Is it there? Maybe we'll just revert to a show of hands for the moment. Okay, would you please vote? Okay, would you mark me in favor, please? I haven't got my screen up yet. Haven't approved on consent. Cultural Center, a contract award for supply and delivery. So
my name is Holly Sovdi. I'm here today to respond to Council's direction to recognize the contributions of Council directed staff to report back on options to identify an appropriate place or civic asset that can be named in recognition of Pat Quinn. With the input of his family, the civic Council also directed staff to look at Abbott Street as a potential option as a national and international figure. To highlight a few of his accomplishments, he was head coach, general manager, and president. He presided over the downtown to Rogers Arena in 1995, and he also coached Canada's Olympic men's hockey goal in Salt Lake City. The process staff undertook to form a recommendation for Council included reviewing the feedback that we had received to date, looking at technical options and spaces, where we were able to shortlist 2 options. We consulted directly with the Quinn family, and I'd like to thank Callie Quinn, Pat Quinn's daughter, for helping tremendously as part of this process. And we consulted the city's Civic Asset Naming Committee. When we consulted the Civic Asset Naming Committee, although it's not their mandate to rename existing streets, they did take the opportunity to provide advice to us. And really, they reviewed the shortlisted options based on 3 guiding principles: historical references, the authenticity of the site is looking at, and address retention. Between the 700 block of Abbott Street, which is directly adjacent to Rogers. Working closely with the Quinn family, they felt it was very, very important and somewhere that would provide a lasting legacy as part of. The Quinn family wholeheartedly supported the renaming of 700 block. So staff's recommendation is that the existing segment of Abbott Street be renamed Pat Quinn Way. Directly direct the general manager of engineering services to expedite the fabrication.
But speak to the motion. Move and speak to.
Okay, please proceed. Don't see anyone else. Go for it.
Okay, no questions. On the contributions of PAC of a motion and of obviously as a quintessential Canuck, and I think we serve him and all the work that he did in his career for our city by renaming that block of Abbott Street. I think there's for the first decades of the team. Despite their best efforts, we didn't get very far other than the one run in 81, 82 was it? And Pat Quinn was really who brought the Canucks and hockey into the limelight here in Vancouver in the 90s. Just blood, sweat, and tears that built a team that we were all so proud of, and was really part of, I think, building a ton of confidence. When he coached Canada, I know as someone who grew up playing hockey, I was the Olympics for so many years. 2002 was a big year, a big breakthrough year for Canada, seizing golds, and we haven't let go of those much since then. So it was a coming of age, finally claiming our rightful spot at the top of world hockey at the Olympics, and that was thanks to his efforts in pulling that team together and coaching winners. And that broader commitment to community, to giving back, to making sure that kids and the community were an integral part of the organization here in Vancouver, but that spread far and wide across the country, across North America, everywhere he went, everywhere that the hockey world was a well-deserving honor for Pat Quinn and the legacy that he leaves us for all of his life's work. Big for helping us on this front and making sure we do the right thing here, and a big and to the naming committee for their work, particularly in an expedited fashion. To see it happening, and appreciate a good. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Mayor. Councillor Reimer.
Well, I just wanted to add a vote of thanks, particularly to that they did on the short turnaround. It's such an excellent example of when the community individual, and this is not the community expertise on historical and other factors, as well as the staff expertise. It's not an easy thing in a mature city like Vancouver to find the space to rename. And then when you do find an appropriate space, there's a host of considerations from merging to the cost to businesses of changing address and residents, as well as the heritage consideration that this street was abandoned. As it happens, this stretch of street actually didn't exist historically. It's quite a new street. So it was a perfect on this so quick. A sort of footnote, but an important one. A short timeline was so Al, I understand, is fine now.
Issues with regards to turnover in the area at the moment that I could tell you about.
Great. You must be pleased with the business tenants' response. None sent in a letter of opposition. That's fairly gratifying, I would assume.
It's fantastic. I'm surprised, actually. Not surprised because of any outreach that we've done. They're positive, or the response was positive all the way around.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to learn that the opposition came from property owners as opposed to businesses.
Yeah, interesting. How are your members feeling about street closures like the car-free days?
Car-free days, with regards to some of the outreach that we did, the surveys, Car-Free Day was one of the events that was least favorable amongst the events that do take place in the area.
It was pretty rainy this last year, the last one. It was
For sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know that where the I guess the negative components come from that event. But we've decided this year to reach out to the group a little bit more that is putting on that particular event to see where we can help out to make the event better and maybe provide more support and in that way improve what's happening for the businesses in the area.
Great. And one last question. Organics recycling, I've heard from some businesses that it's a challenge about where to put the bins, etc. How is it within your BIA?
With our particular BIA, there is not a lot of alleyway access. So some of the garbage and recycling, organic storage can be difficult and challenging logistically.
It'd be good to talk to staff about that, but anyway, within the city, but go ahead.
Definitely. And we're working to, try to find solutions. But as the initiative has just really kind of taken a foothold, it's a little bit early in the game, I think, to come up with a game plan. I think we're going to continue monitoring it. But for the most part, it's been positive, and all the restaurants and businesses are making a real effort in that area.
Great. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Carr. Councillor Reimer.
Thank you, Chairperson. Hello, Mr. Pogar. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you.
Good. Thanks for coming and for all your work to get the businesses on board for renewals. As you heard, doesn't always, sometimes it's a little bit more raucous in here at the BIA renewal meeting. I was really pleased to hear your comments on the community planning process and how that's gone for you. I guess my own experience, having lived on or near the drive for the last 20 years, is that the residents not universally, but they are very proud of and take for granted that this small business community will be there. But then when it comes to actual dialogue about the needs of the small business community, that isn't always well understood, let's put it that way, as to what the needs of supporting such a vibrant local business community is. So curious to know through the process, has it felt like that residents are getting a better understanding of what it's going to take to support that kind of local shopping district?
That is one of the items that we as a BIA are working and have been working on for really specifically that item in communicating what the business's needs are to the community and how that fits into the entire community planning process, and how the businesses contribute to the neighborhood, especially the real mix of old, new businesses and long-term businesses, mom and pop type shops that make up the fabric of what Commercial Drive is. So in communicating and making public what the needs are of the business and sharing that with the public is one of the items that we are really working on right now to get better at. I think sometimes some of the communication between the businesses and the public does get lost, and I think there needs to be a better synergy between the two groups.
There's a way that we can help with that, like especially I know from the Downtown East Side planning process, there was quite a gulf between the business community and the residents going into that. There were strong relationships built to the planning process, but then the key from my perspective was how do we keep those relationships strong after the planning process? So if there's a way for us to assist with that, happy to talk about that.
No, thanks so much.
You have, I was trying to think of another BIA that has this problem other than the downtown one, but you have this massive transit node in your BIA area. And I know from going through there pretty much every day that garbage is a big issue, right? And yet the city can't really impact too much on it because TransLink is the one controlling where the containers are and when they pick them up. So I'm curious to know how, have relationships improved at all with TransLink about their management of that site?
It's great that you mentioned that. When I say we, I obviously am referring to the Commercial Drive Business Society. I've been with them for just coming on a year now. So I guess redeveloping and reaching out to many of these groups on my part as a representative of the Commercial Drive Business Society. I don't know the entire history of the relationships, but we have had meetings. So the group from TransLink, as well as various other stakeholders in the area, such as VPD, the TransLink Police, the community policing, and myself, along with the Commercial Drive Business Society. We have met a few times to discuss some of the issues with regards to the garbage in the area and sanitation overall. It's one of the major concerns for our BIA. We do, as I mentioned, spend a good portion of our budget on graffiti and keeping the area clean, and it is challenging when it comes to the SkyTrain hub in that area, especially with their expansion and the forecasted increase in travelers in the area. Keeping the area neat, tidy, and graffiti-free is a big concern. And then, of course, with TransLink and the other various stakeholders having a bit of separation in the way they operate, it's sometimes a little bit confusing or challenging on my part to try and get these various groups to come up with resolutions. I think everybody wants to get there, but some of the roadmap to getting there seems to be a little bit tough. But everybody does seem to be working towards the same goal, which is, I think, the most important thing. There are some concerns with the SkyTrain hub specifically with regards to potentially providing washrooms. It's a big concern for the businesses in the area. A lot of them are not opening their doors to the many travelers that come through the area. I know the SkyTrain group has installed plumbing in the event that they decide to provide that service, but their general consensus is that they're not in the washroom business. I can understand that to some regard, but where the disconnect happens for me is if they are not, in that business of providing that service to the ridership, who is, and how do we get that team or group on board to help try to, alleviate some of the washroom issues. And then, coupled with that is the sanitation and garbage issues in the neighborhood. If it's going to increase, we need to make a plan to increase services for those areas within that, and how they'll affect and spill over into the immediate surrounding area.
I'm guessing I'm well out of time, but I'm happy to follow up with you on both of the issues that we were discussing.
Fantastic. That'd be
Okay,
great. Yes.
great.
Thanks, Mr. Pogar. That's all your questions. Thank you for coming today.
Thanks very much.
Our next speaker is Larry Garraway, President of Hastings North BIA. Ms. Barnes, are you gonna do the honors?
Obviously, I'm not Larry Garraway. I just want to let you know he's really sorry he couldn't stay, but he just got a phone call saying his wife is ill and has to take her to emergency. So I'm here to speak on his behalf. And he wanted to let you know that he has been the president of RBIA for the last 5 years. He has been involved in RBIA for a long time before that. He owns the property and the business, Maxwell Fabrics, in our light industrial area currently, and has, I think, been a strong supporter. Well, he's our president, obviously, been a very strong supporter of the BIA moving forward. And I'd also like to let you know that Hallmark Chicken Processing is also in our neighborhood, huge light industrial business that has also been an extremely strong supporter of our BIA over the years. In regards, the BIA was established in 2001, and I know at that time we had some questions about how we were going to meet the needs of the light industrial area, but I think it's important to note that the BIA, actually some of the strong proponents of the BIA starting were light industrial owners, and it was around safety, it was around security, it was around garbage, it was around graffiti, it was around drugs, it was around sex work, and it was around homeless issues. And they saw that coming together and working together was definitely important, and that we could be a strong advocate in looking for solutions and for ways of moving forward. And I think they also recognize that, yes, BIA's do a lot of work for retail and the high street, but for the industrial, if your high street is nice, it's much easier to bring in your employees, it's much better for your wholesale clients that come in, and it creates this much stronger identity. And you can see what's happened in our area over the last 14 years. And now we're the East Village, and we're hip and we're cool, and we still have a little bit of grit from our light industrial area, but again, that's attracting people in. We're the brewery district. It's a pretty exciting place. And so we've had questions, as you can see from some of the letters that have come in, around what we are going to do for light industrial. I think part of what we're doing, and a lot of what we're doing right now, is that you guys talked about, is the Grandview Woodland Plan. That is our light industrial area that's involved in that plan. That is who I am sitting at those meetings advocating for. And this is what we also talk to those property owners and businesses in that area, that we will be there to advocate for industrial. We realize how important it is in the city. We realize that the city has made a commitment to it, so we're there to help and to put them in touch with the right people. I had a question from one of the property owners the other day who said to me, why would we support you coming in? Why would we pay this money? He says, I already do graffiti paint outs. I'm picking up the garbage. I'm a good property owner. And I said, that's great. Is there something on your mind that we could help you with? He said, well, McLean Drive, it's not paved. And one of my tenants deals with a lot of people with various disabilities, wheelchairs, HIV positive. They're having a really hard time now because it's getting really rutted, it's getting a mess, and I don't even know who to talk to at the city to help me with that. Is that something the BIA would do? Yes, absolutely, that's something we would do. The Powell Street overpass, he said, what about that? Can you help us with that? We've got cars now. It's great, it's brand new, it looks great, but cars are rushing across that. They're speeding downtown. People can't cross the street. Can you help us with that? Can you talk to people at the city and see who we can talk to and help us with that? Well, those are things that we can do. We can talk to you guys, and we can talk to city staff. And he said, okay, well, I guess grudgingly, I will not send in my letter, and I will call you in 4 weeks to take you up on your offer. So I think that's what the BIA is really all about for light industrial. And of course, we still have our security patrols, and those are done through our community policing center. We do not have private security. We do believe in working with our community and strong partnerships. And I think all those things we can offer. And the graffiti, we obviously do graffiti, we do the garbage pickup. We do all those things along with the advocacy work. And so that's what I'm here to tell you today is what we're looking at and why we hope that the expansion will go through, and we believe that we can give service for the dollars that are collected on our behalf.
Thanks very much, Ms. Barnes. You have a number of questions. Councillor Deal is up first.
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you very much, and thanks for explaining the importance in the light industrial and non-retail areas as well. Just a couple more questions around that particular issue. Well, first of all, this is a midterm expansion. What actually led to you deciding to try for this expansion mid-term?
So I'll be honest with you. We've had some questions over the number of years asking us about expanding our BIA. And I've kind of went, oh, really? I've got so much to do within our own boundaries right now. We're not ready for it. We just weren't ready for it. We had so much work still to do within our own boundaries to try and improve the situation there. And we kind of got to that place where my president said, well, you know what? We're doing good work. I think the time is now. And so the time was now.
Nice. So a little bit more about the industrial side. You've actually explained it really well and given some very good concrete, so to speak, examples of things like paving sidewalks. But I also was thinking you have a lot of artist studios in the area, and although it may not be strictly retail, it seems like between the culture crawl and the breweries and so forth, that there is in fact a fair amount of pedestrian traffic that might be relatively new. Is that the case?
Yes, that's absolutely the case. When I first started there, it was quite deserted, and you had to be very careful walking in that area. And unbeknownst to my board, I would go and stand on the corner to watch the Johns drive by and to see if there were women there that needed assistance.
Because you've been very active, of course, in living in community, which
Yes,
is amazing.
Yeah. There's much less of that. What we see now is, and I agree it's cyclical, and I hope that we are working towards solutions, and we certainly are not in the business of pushing people out anywhere. We're much more about looking for solutions. But with the advent of I think the brewery district has really started to bring in, we've got buses coming into our light industrial area now. We have parking problems in our light industrial area now. We have people wandering around in our light industrial area now. More people in the area, the safer it is, the more vibrant it is. And I think it's starting to mean that more people will come. When I first started, businesses were calling me up and saying, we can't get employees, they won't come in. Our wholesale clients don't want to be down here because they don't want people thinking they're down here to pick up underage girls. We don't have those concerns anymore. Employees are happy to be in the area. We're getting less. Obviously we're not perfect, but we've come a long way. And I think when I talked to another couple of businesses in there, they said to me, well, can you help me with the homeless guy that's sleeping in my front door? Can you connect me with who he should be seeing? Well, they're actually just down from the winter shelter that's there. So those kind of things are still, because they're sandwiched between two BIAs that are doing their work, there is a bit of congregation in that area of some issues that they need assistance with.
That's very good. I was actually just about to I'm looking at the map right now, just trying to figure out exactly where those two boundaries between you and Commercial Drive are. You're basically, if this passes, you're abutting each other.
We would abut
Yeah.
Strathcona, so I believe they go to the first property on the east side of Clark, and we would abut up against Strathcona, and we work quite closely with Strathcona, representing industrial. So
Well, that's excellent. One last question. I see others have questions here, and that's because you referenced it. It seems to me like one of the things that you talk about, if you're talking about a creative city, or if you're talking about attracting new, hip, young businesses, is employee satisfaction, and that working in an area, not even if it's a great industrial job, that liking where you work is something that helps to add to wanting to stay in that job, to the business itself thriving, as well as, again, longevity of the employees and happiness of the employees. Is that
yeah, absolutely
fit with what you're hearing? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Affleck.
Councillor Deal kind of addressed a lot of the questions that I had. I think that was quite in depth. Was actually that relationship between the current, boundaries and this new boundary. But how have you been thinking about how you're going to tie that together? For example, some of the beer and distillery places are quite far into the corners of the new neighborhood. How you're going to connect them, literally like, through ideas for the BIA and through any kind of streetscapes, any kind of...
So, I mean, we're part of the Grandview Woodland Plan, obviously, right now, and I think some of those issues and the walkability and the connections, not only between... Oh, Nick didn't leave, he's my drive home. Between us and Commercial Drive and those walkabilities, I think, are fundamental to what's happening with the Grandview Woodland Plan at the present time. The other thing that we've done, we've actually already connected with with breweries in our area, but also breweries outside our area. We've produced a walking map that right now the breweries are getting printed. It'll be a tearaway map in each of the breweries, and then we're going to put it on our website and out through Facebook and everything. And so that takes you on a walking map, and we'll have to expand that a little bit now, but that will connect. And of course, Powell Street was in our area, and now they've moved out. They're on that map. So, and Strange Fellows, Odd Fellows, I think it's
Odd Fellows, yeah.
Yeah, so there are some ideas like that, and I think the craft breweries and the distilleries are very active, and they're very anxious, obviously, to be successful. And we've already worked with them. Actually, I brought it to Councillor Deal around the farmers market, how active they want to be in there. So I think there are some ideas there. We could always use new ideas if you have any, but. Yes, we're working on things like that.
Okay, and then also the relationship between the other two BIAs. It's because it's sort of, in a way, even though it's north of Hastings, it's still kind of seems to be a little bit of an orphan, and it's surrounded by sort of three BIAs. And how did you get the wrestle control of it? I mean, was there any desire by Strathcona to go east, or Commercial Drive to come down north?
Commercial Drive, it's not a very good fit because there's actually a fair amount of space in between them with no business representation. Plus, Commercial Drive, they're an entity unto their own. They're a very unique area, and light industrial representation doesn't really fit into what they already do. And I think they have a lot going on Commercial Drive that keeps them really busy. We did not proceed forward with this expansion before going to Strathcona, and I spoke to Joji and I spoke to Toby. And discussed it with them. So some of the issues, of course, are with the Downtown Eastside plan that stops at Clark. So that makes complete sense for them to be west of Clark. And there are different priorities and different issues that come forward and different incentives when you go east of Clark. So it made more sense for us to expand to join their boundaries east of Clark. And when we talked to them, that just seemed the natural fit.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Affleck. Councillor Carr.
Thanks, Ms. Barnes, so much for coming and presenting all of your good work. My first question has to do with the artists in the community, which Councillor Deal did talk about. There's a number that are in the light industrial district, and tell me how that's working. Is it? Do you think it's working to have artist studios in that area? Is that? Do you have concerns being raised by the industrial owners about that?
So I think with anything, it's all about mix. So even with the craft breweries, with the artists, with the light industrial, it's all about looking at the mix and where the turning point is and how you maintain the essential character of the area. So for our light industrial properties, it's really important that they are protected as light industrial. That is what they do. They are a surface service providing businesses. They are industrial. They have their property assessments are lower due to the use of the land and what they can put on it. So I think, again, it comes right down to looking at the mix. What is the right mix for the area? I think it's important. They see the importance of having different kinds of businesses, and I think there's also a recognition that art can be wrought iron metalwork, and all sorts of things are artists. I think where the concern comes in is if we go too far to one side. I know that I was approached by some residents about designating the light industrial area as an arts and culture district. We can't support that. And that doesn't mean that we don't support arts and culture, but it does mean we have to recognize the mix. We have to recognize the importance of light industrial, and we have to recognize that there can be conflict if we're not careful. And it's the same with the breweries. They've been highly successful, but obviously we have parking conflicts right now, you know, because we have so many people coming in to see them, and our employers still have to park down there, and employees still have to park down there, and the trucks are still rattling through there. So again, it's all about how we manage that mix and how we make sure that it works to the benefit of everybody.
Very helpful, thank you. And my second question, last, is really around the whole issue of the sex trade and prostitution. You put on a fantastic event around living in community.
Yeah.
So maybe you can just detail the successes that have been spearheaded, you know, with your help through living in community.
So I think for all of us, and I hope for you guys too, one of the biggest success we've had is this council passing the motion and creating sex work as a lens for the city, recognizing the importance of supporting sex workers in the city, recognizing the vulnerability and the issues that we face going forward, especially with the new law passed by the federal government. I think the other big success that we're having now is we're actually have the province at the table to talk about this issue. I think the fact that I can stand here in council now and talk about sex work, number of years ago that was very, very difficult, and I can tell you I knocked on a lot of politicians' doors who said, yeah, we get it, don't talk to me about it anymore. But the fact I can stand here and everybody will talk about it now, will recognize that it's an important issue. I think that we've realized that these are people, really important. These are people in our society with the same rights as everybody else, and that is really important for us to recognize. I think for me, another success is that my board supports me in the work that we do with this. They have been supportive ever since we first started so many years ago, and they still support me putting a fair amount of time into looking at it. And I think the other thing is that I'd like to say one of the successes of our BIA is that we have not supported pushing sex workers out. We have tried to be respectful. We have seen a change. We do notice that there is less sex work in our area. I know that doesn't mean there's less sex work. Really, I hope that those that are in our area feel safer, because we do let our Sunrise Patrol team know that if a sex worker approaches them for help, they are to provide help. I know the CPC and especially Claire are really good now about assessing resident complaints when they get them in and whether they're valid or not valid, and they know who to go to now, to go to Wish or wherever they go. So yes, I think we've come a long way, but there's a lot further way to go, and we're still there, and we still will be there, and that's one of the ones we have explained to the new area is where our philosophy is and what we believe in.
Well, thanks to you and your BIA for such leadership on this.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor, you've had one round, eh? Okay, thank you. So I'll just advance to Councillor DeGenova. And
I just have a couple of questions. Some of my questions have already been answered, but I was wondering sort of this concept of the East Village. I've heard a lot about this. So I've heard maybe some shop and business owners who have been there forever, who perhaps in some ways might feel that wasn't the right naming, but it makes it hip and cool and has brought some new businesses and new people. I'm just wondering sort of if you could give a BIA perspective on that. Do you find that people are torn on this issue? Am I just hearing this from a few people, or is this something that you're dealing with?
So it was very controversial. Change always is very controversial, and we changed the name. Part of the issue was we were originally called Hastings Sunrise, and when I first started in 2001, we were the Hastings North BIA, and I don't know if you've ever tried to market Hastings North or come up with a banner that would display Hastings North. It's kind of cold and non-descriptive, and it doesn't do much. And at the time, it was like, okay, I have to do something. You know, we need to move forward here. So, hey, we're in Hastings Sunrise. Let's call it Hastings Sunrise. That was probably my mistake way back then, is we kind of went the easy route. You could display Sunrise. It felt good. We were in the east. It made sense. And we had nice banners. But as the BIA grew and we progressed and we started to see a change in the issues that we were dealing with, and we started to see change happening in that area, we realized that we needed to start concentrating more on marketing, branding, and promotion, and that was a huge about face for our BIA. You know, we weren't doing much marketing prior to that. We were really concentrating on those life issues. And so then we went out and we said, okay, this is where we're going to go after our renewal. We're going to do promotion, we're going to do branding, we're going to look at the change for the area. We're getting left behind as a BIA, and that doesn't make sense. We need to be out in front of it. So we went out, we did surveys, we did a whole year process, and it started to become apparent that those who were west of Nanaimo, east of Nanaimo is Hastings Sunrise, west of Nanaimo is Grandview Woodland. And we were getting some feedback that, you know, you're taking Grandview Woodland and you're making it Hastings Sunrise. You can't do that. You can't go into our neighborhood and call it something different. We kind of got to the point where it was like, okay, we're a BIA. We straddle two neighborhoods, but we are enclosed in those two neighborhoods. We're a very small part of those two neighborhoods, and we represent the commercial district. Let's unite our area under one name, and let's try and be a little bit, you know, hip and cool. We're a hipster area, and so let's try and see what we can do about that. And one of the names that was put forward was the East Village. And yeah, we get the New York connotation. We're not dumb. We know that creates excitement, and people want to know when they get off, you know, into the city, wow, East Village, what's the East Village? And it enabled us to be really kind of fun with our banners and funky with our logo. And, you know, if you put all the logos up, I think the Hastings North BIA logo kind of sticks out with our East Village. I'm a little bit partial. And so we went with it. And it wasn't without its trials. And I mean, I sat there and got the emails and the phone calls, and I got called all sorts of wonderful names around our name. But it all boils down to the fact that we are a BIA. We are about promoting our commercial district. We are about supporting our small business. We need to bring in business into our neighborhood for it to survive and for those small businesses to work. And so we didn't rename a neighborhood. We can't rename a neighborhood. You're still living in Hastings Sunrise, but we're going to brand under the East Village, and we're going to market under the East Village, and we're going to try and create a character and a feel and something that expresses who and what we are. And yes, some of our businesses were a little upset. Many of them were neutral, and yet what we started to get in was people. And I started getting reports from my businesses that people saw some of the negative stuff that went into the newspaper and came because they wanted to know what it was all about. They wanted to know what was there. And they discovered that this is not a scary area. This is not frightening. This is actually kind of cool. And there's really neat restaurants and there's new businesses. And now I'm getting calls from new businesses who say, you know, we're really excited about being in the East Village. What can you tell me? What do we do? How do we get involved? So even, and we will always have some naysayers. I get that, always.
Brings me to my next question. And you talked about East and West and sort of straddling two communities, but I have to say I was driving down Powell Street and I see a number of new businesses, restaurants there. Do you find that you're also kind of expanding into the north a little bit there?
Yeah,
Are they buying into that BIA as well?
Yes. Yeah, they are, and part of that, I think, again, is the change that we're getting. And you know, we've got some artist studios down there. We've got the new distillery down there, Kessler March down there. We're bringing people in, and it's just it's really exciting. It's a challenge. You know, I have to find different ways to make sure that everybody gets included in what we do. But I think the branding, the social media, and the promotion really helps with all that.
And I just had one last question, but I can hold it for the second round.
Go ahead.
Just also, I understand sort of expanding north, but have you had any sort of talks, or are you regularly talking to the port at all? You had talked about pedestrian traffic, and I understand there's a lot of trucks that go through that area and that neighborhood. If you're trying to sort of make that a more pedestrian-friendly and welcoming area, have you at all talked to the port or?
So we do talk to the port. I have to let you know that because movement of goods and services is really important. Mm-hmm. So part of what we are advocating for with the Grandview Woodland is we have to be really careful about how we bring those elements together. So yes, we want to make sure our pedestrians are safe. We recognize that you need an attractive, safe pedestrian area, but we also recognize that those trucks have to come and go. they are the lifeblood of the businesses in that area. So the question then is it's about location. Where are the correct locations for pedestrian walkways or for biking areas, and how do we make sure that it's safe and that there is a safe integration between bikes and pedestrians and trucks and parking and all these issues that we have going on. And I think the important thing that we always have to recognize is that we are part of a vibrant working industrial area and a vibrant working port. And with those things comes noise and smells and trucks and congestion. And how do we manage that and plan for that as we move into the future? And how do we make sure that all those things can still work together?
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Councillor Genova. Councillor Dill, you had a follow-up?
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to actually move the recommendations.
Okay, well then pause there. I have a couple of questions, Ms. Barnes. I was struck by, first of all, thanks for your involvement with the Newcomers Employment Project. I don't think too many in council are very familiar with that, but a very important small business initiative to try to facilitate early employment of new arrivals in Canada, which is great. But I'm interested too in your district because I recently drove through North Burnaby, so we saw Hastings Street further east, where there's an explosion of development by my way of thinking. I don't go along there that often. And I would say more intense than in your district. So there's a lot of new three-story development and so on, and new retail, which raises the question of future retail. And you anticipate and hope for business supporting growth. And there's that London drugs controversy. I just wonder if you could comment on what steps you think, I know the VEC is working on it, or the city could take to support the continuing role for small business and not see what I think are seeing fairly often as a drift towards more London drugs, more pharmacares, more sort of category killers at the street level. So I wonder if you have any feedback from your leadership about that.
So I think one thing I'd like to say is we're really looking forward to that London drugs development going forward, because everybody does need some kind of anchor in their neighborhood to bring people out. So that is important to us. I think that part of what we're wrestling with around small business and development is we've seen as part of the Grandview Woodland Plan that originally came forward talking about heights and 8 stories going up to 15 stories along Hastings Street. Our concern around some of those things, and I think that City Council has addressed some of that through looking at the property tax and agreeing to go with us to BC assessment to look at how assessment's done and split assessments because that burden can be very heavy on a small independent business. I think the other issue is, of course, space and size of space in new developments and how we regulate that and how we ensure that those spaces remain affordable. And I guess that comes down to a smaller footprint. And again, it comes down to mix as well, because although we want to make sure that we have smaller footprints for those small independents to have the opportunity to open in our area, we still have to recognize that we have a business that's interested in coming in and starting up a restaurant, lounge, pub kind of thing. They need to be able to consolidate a bit to have enough seats to make it possible. So I think it's, and I know there are people who work at the city that are more knowledgeable than me around all those licensing and policy and how you work it. But I think those things are something that we feel very strongly about. We think that there is a way we support density, but we think there's a way of doing density that will retain the character and also retain the opportunity for small independents. I think one of the things that we're seeing in the city as the outskirts of the city are becoming hubs for those kind of small businesses. A lot of the businesses that have opened up in my area are 25 to 35-year-olds going out on their own and just branching out. I have one now who started out as a small little cats and dogs place. Then they rented the place beside them and they opened up Jackalope's Dive. And now they've actually rented up a bigger place for their cats and dogs because they're doing really well. And they're going to open up a tattoo parlor now in the cats and dogs place.
Cats and dogs?
Huh?
4 cats and dogs?
4 cats and dogs, yes. So, I mean, that kind of change and growth is really exciting. And so it is our challenge, both the BIA and I think the cities, working together on how we channel that and enable that to continue happening into the future. And I think that's one of our big challenges moving forward.
Yeah, thanks. I just recalled we had the assessment authority explain to us that because council rezoned the light industrial area to the north of City Hall here, emphatically keeping it light industrial and not raising heights and so on. There's been a very dramatic increase in the values down there, and I think quite a bit of development, which is job intensive and so on, which is
Yep.
great. And so I think your expansion puts you in a position to be very strategic in advising the city and monitoring how this kind of retail development goes, because you have the opportunity to do all of those things in your area, and
Yes.
you're the first to see the problem. So thanks very much for coming today. Councillor Deal, do you want to do the
Yes.
honors?
I'll try to keep this brief because we've spent a lot of time on a wonderful subject here this morning. Just to move the recommendations, congratulate the two BIAs, and Commercial Drive remains one of our most important destination funky places in the city, and on Hastings North, taking on the bold move of expanding into light industrial in a neighborhood that is evolving, has a lot of new and funky businesses as well, but also has some very traditional industrial and light industrial businesses which have to be supported because they are creating important economies and jobs in the area. And I have to say that the Hastings Street B line will be a huge asset for people doing brewery tours in particular, I would say, and getting to and from work. So yes, on the plebiscite, please, that'll help with this. But it's great to see things like street hockey, shredding events, and food tours all on the calendar. And we look forward to your expansion and your continued success and growth in both of those two BIAs. And I think you're the last tranche of renewals, hopefully, if the provincial government moves forward with the changes that we've asked for there. So thanks for that.
So you're, pardon me? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Carr. Sorry, let me get your mic on here. Go on.
Want me to?
There you go.
Okay, thank you. I'm just wondering, in the actual report here, it states that the Vancouver Charter says that the approval of a local improvement council initiative, like a BAA, requires a 2/3 vote. It's not listed in our agenda as needing a 2/3 vote. I wonder if you could just clarify that.
I think it needs 2/3 vote of the people present, not 2/3 of all council.
No, I know. It's just not listed on this.
Clerk, do we need a 2/3 vote? My hunch is it's not a problem, but
And by the way, Patricia, we'll be working on the VEC work with you as well.
I don't anticipate a problem here. I just want to clarify.
okay, why don't we just see if it's going to work, and if it doesn't, we'll regroup and get the ruling.
Probably, but I'd like to know it. I'd like to see it in the agenda. Yeah. It's page 2 of the report that specifies it.
The charter she's checking.
Okay, well, I think I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say that I think it'll be unanimous.
Let's have a vote.
Okay, let's try the vote, and then if it works out, we won't have to worry about specifics. Okay, if you're ready to vote, please do so. Can't see it? Call vote. It's just so many steps here. So you can cast me a yes. I guess, where do I vote here? Okay, it's unanimous. Phew. Thanks very much, everybody. Okay, that completes our agenda. So the standing committee portion of this meeting is now complete, and we'll convene in regular council. Mr. Mayor? Oh, you want your mic too? There we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councillor Meggs, we will now convene a regular council to deal with the recommendations and actions from today's standing committee on city finance and services meeting. Madam Clerk, may we have the roll call for council, please?
All members present, with the exception of Councillors Louis and Zhang, who are on leave of absence for civic business, and Councillor Ball on medical leave. You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We need a motion to adopt the standing committee's recommendations. Moved by Councillor Deal and a seconder. Councillor Carr, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that carries unanimously. And we have one bylaw on the agenda for consideration, which is related to the street name bylaw 4054 regarding Pat Quinn Way. And we need someone to move that bylaw. Councillor Reimer and a seconder. Councillor Deal, all those in favor of the bylaw? Any opposed? That carries. And we need a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Reimer, seconded by Councillor Deal. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. And this council meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the day.